Hello, hello, and welcome in episode number 4 of Trevor and Sean's weekly podcast. Trevor Mater, Sean, as always, bringing you what's going on in the sports world, our predictions, our opinions, and the news of the sports world. We got a busy episode here today. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft and what's coming up there, one player in particular when it pertains to that. Then the silly season of college basketball and coaches moving around, going different places, a couple surprises. We'll kind of look towards what to expect going into that. And then it's March, so, you didn't possibly think we were going to not talk college basketball. So, going to dissect a little March Madness. Like I said, I'm here with Sean. Sean, pretty good weekend of basketball, wasn't it?
I was honestly scared for a lot of the games, and honestly, not keeping track of my bracket. This was probably the most fun that I've had with March Madness. I think I messaged you last night. I was like, I don't even think I've actually looked at how my bracket's done. I've just seen the points and been like, okay, that's cool, but not entirely caring, because it's a lot more fun to just watch good games and not have the bearing matter.
That's why I always let my bracket bust in the second round or the Sweet 16, like it did this year, because now I can just sit back, enjoy some college basketball, epically root against the teams I don't like instead of rooting for them because I need them to help my bracket. So it just allows me to sit back and enjoy the beauty of a South Carolina Baylor matchup or something like that. So pretty good weekend ahead of us. We'll talk about that here later on. And Sean, we got to get to it first. You look at the NFL draft, that's coming up just a little over a month away. There's a lot of really good running backs in this draft class. You have Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Deontay Foreman from Texas, Donnell Pumphrey from San Diego State, that running back from Stanford that I don't really like to mention by name, Christian McCaffrey. But the most compelling one of all is a guy from Oklahoma.
It's not
And it's not Samaje Perine.
Yeah, I was like, Perine. Side note, he actually had a pretty good showing, but he'll probably go in fourth or
fifth round. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about, and I'm sure everybody knows who I'm talking about. That would be Joe Mixon, running back of Oklahoma. If you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years, Joe Mixon was actually a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. They had that backfield of Mixon and Perine, and everyone thought it'd be a great combination. It just never really got to click. And both outstanding players, though. But none of that is why Joe Mixon is such a hot topic right now. The main reason why we're talking about Joe Mixon even is you go back to July 25th, 2014, at a restaurant in Norman, Oklahoma. There was an altercation between Mixon and another female student at the University of Oklahoma. It was one of those he said, she said things of he admits that he said a homophobic slur towards her friend and claims that she made a racial slur directed towards him. That is kind of blurry there, but what can't be hidden by that is the fact that the woman suffered 4 broken bones in her face from a Joe Mixon punch, and Mixon was given a 1-year deferred sentence and a year-long suspension. The funny thing about this, and this is just so funny, even though it's really not, is the video did not come out for that until, right before the Sugar Bowl? It was pretty recent that it came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he had some off-the-field issues even this year. It was he got into a arguing thing with a parking attendant.
Yeah, something about throwing a fit over a parking ticket.
Something like that. But it was, that kind of brought him into not quite national spotlight, but it brought up his name for not football reasons. And then I don't know how exactly the news got out about this video.
Well, I know that there had been an argument about it for a long time between reporters in Oklahoma, and actually, they'd gone to court. I didn't do all of my research into this prior to the show, but it leaked right around Christmas time, right before the Sugar Bowl. I don't remember exactly when, but, they go into media day at the Sugar Bowl, and Joe Mixon was an absolute jerk about it, refused to talk anything about it, had an official from, I don't know if it was the University or the NCAA, that just went ahead and said at the beginning of the press conference, anybody who asks any non-football related conversations will be escorted out of the press conference. Well, obviously, when you have someone with that background and that type of baggage on them, you're obviously going to get those kind of questions, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it's not a thing that you can avoid, I think that's the wrong way to go about it at that point, because that's we're going to outright deny it quite of like part of it, and I think they could have just been like, okay, try to stick away from these questions. We will come out at a later date with all the information, and that's when you guys will get it.
And this is the same but different because they're two terribly different things, but they're totally different. I remember going back to last year's draft when Dak Prescott came out, and Dak Prescott had got a DUI right before the combine. And I think it was John Gruden was doing a mock interview with him, and Gruden had sat down and he had asked him tough questions that they were going to ask, and Dak was really sincere and empathetic with it, and admitted to making a mistake, and that he wanted to move on from it, and answered them openly. And we all saw what Dak Prescott did this year. But Joe Mixon refused to talk about the Sugar Bowl. Then he wasn't allowed to compete at the combine because of a rule the NFL has in place of if you've been charged with a violent crime, you're not allowed to compete. Which, does that help him or does that hurt him? I don't know. Does it?
It's hard to say if it's going to help him or hurt him, honestly, because everyone knows the information and they've seen what he can do on the field, and he should be able to compete at the pro day and pretty much do, anything that you would actually do at the combine. And I'm sure teams have talked to him, because teams do all
the Broncos just talked to him. I read a report earlier today. I don't know when they talked to him, but they did speak to him at his pro day, I believe. But yeah, it's tricky because you don't want to give this guy the opportunity to show himself at the combine, but at the same time, you're almost kind of sheltering it from him. Because now it's only the teams that want to come and see him can come and see him and ask about it. So I don't know. It's a tricky thing, and there's a lot more. The combine's a lot more in depth than your pro day is, and I'm sure they don't give you a wonder look test at the pro day, and a lot of the things they make you go through at the combine. So that's a interesting thing the NFL did. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Because it makes sense from a shallow level. Maybe if you look into it deeper, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I guess the question I have here, Sean, is if you're the general manager of any team right now, or the owner, because that's probably who it's actually going to come down to decide this, and you're sitting in the third round, and you need a running back, are you taking Joe Mixon, or are you contemplating it?
I think a team is going to pick him up. I think
so too.
Because of a team like the Chiefs last year who picked up Tyreek Hill, that was, I would say, a worse situation. They just didn't have video. Again, you and I have talked about this, that having the actual video makes things 10 times worse.
I've always said, the reason Ray Rice is not playing and Adrian Peterson is because there was video of what Ray Rice did and not video of what Adrian Peterson did. If there would have been video of Adrian Peterson physically striking his 3-year-old, he would have never played another down in the NFL. And maybe rightfully so. I don't know. I never, there was no video of it, so we can't judge off of that. But yeah, but should it really come down to the video? Should that really
it shouldn't come down
the teller?
To it, but it's kind of the way it's become. And,
there was no video with Greg Hardy. We didn't need video for that. I
think we saw pictures, though, and if you have a video or a picture, it paints more words. They say a picture paints 1,000 words. That's so true. For some of it, it's just word of mouth, but if you actually see it, then there's no way to get around it. You can't kind of lie about it, per se. So,
yeah.
It's hard.
But I don't think you do him any favors, like what the NFL did with Ray Rice, where they just totally botched that whole thing of saying, we haven't seen the video, and then boom, the video comes out. Really? TMZ could get the video and see it, but you didn't? That's kind of hard to believe. So, I don't know. Me personally, if I'm the general manager of any team right now or the owner, I would not draft Joe Mixon. I hope he does get drafted. I really do, and I hope he's successful, and I hope he keeps his head screwed on and stays out of trouble and does anything stupid. But there's just something with him that doesn't click with me. I saw an interview, or listened to an interview that he did not too long ago with, I believe it was ESPN, the magazine, and they played bits and pieces of it on ESPN radio, and how he didn't consider himself a violent person. That's one of those things that is totally fine to say if you got like a DUI or a drug possession charge or something. It's not who I am. I made a mistake, whatever. When the mistake you made impacts another life in that way, in that aggressive of a manner, maybe you're not a violent person, but for that one singular moment, you were. I mean, it's kind of hard to backtrack that.
It's also football. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want you to be violent. Like not in that.
I want you to be violent on the field.
Yes. So but him saying he's not a violent person. I mean, I've seen what you can do, and if that's what happens when you get called a racial slur, and yes, it's still bad in its own right. But like, what are you gonna do if someone hits you on the field?
Yeah,
are you gonna retaliate later type of thing? Like, I don't know how it could end up.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I said, I would not draft Joe Mixon if I had to. That's just me personally. I wouldn't have drafted Tyreek Hill. As a Chiefs fan, am I glad we have Tyreek Hill on our team? Yes, Tyreek Hill the player, not Tyreek Hill the person. I will never support Tyreek Hill the player. I will never buy a Tyreek Hill jersey. I even try to refrain myself from openly cheering for Tyreek Hill. I cheer for the jersey that he wears. And, same if Joe Mixon's drafted by the Chiefs. I won't like it, just like I didn't like them drafting Tyreek Hill, but I'll accept it and hope that everything goes okay, and I will root for the guy. I will root that he is able to get his stuff together, and it was just a one-off incident, even though statistics show that normally isn't how domestic violence works. I do hope it is like that. However, I have my doubts. I mean, the way he kind of handled this whole situation with kind of an irresponsibility and kind of hiding it, and I've never been in that situation, so maybe it's something that's really difficult to talk about. I don't know. I've never been a violent enough person to even fathom striking a woman. So it's just interesting because I think, honestly, without all this, Joe Mixon's probably the third running back taken in this class behind Cook and Fournette. Probably at the latest, he's a second rounder, maybe late first. And now there's probably at least 15 teams that don't even have on their draft board, I would say, and I don't know for sure. But probably at least 15, they're saying, we won't touch this guy. He's got way too much baggage. I mean, there are teams right now that won't sign Colin Kaepernick for a totally different reason because he has too much baggage. Is it a coincidence that Adrian Peterson's still in the market? I know there's not the baggage with him now there would have been a couple years ago, but, I mean, does that kind of damper on him maybe a little bit?
I mean, for those guys, they're also, 30-plus-year-old running backs. Like, him and Jamal Charles, am I kind of shocked that Jamal Charles is not signed?
I'm not.
Yes and no. Yes, because I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm like, who wouldn't want to pick up Jamal Charles? And then the other side of me is like, yeah, but he's also past his prime and injury prone. So,
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, but, I'm one of those guys, too, that based on that, I probably, if Adrian Peterson's free agent right now, I wouldn't sign Adrian Peterson. And not just because of that, but because, to me, there's got to be that balance between what comes with the player as far as the baggage or the past and what you're getting out of the player. The Cowboys signed Greg Hardy to that one-year deal that was worth a lot of money because Greg Hardy was still a really good player. Crappy person. Really, really good player. Maybe you're not getting with Adrian Peterson. That's probably more why Ray Rice isn't in the NFL now than the incident that happened is that it didn't, his production was declining and it didn't warrant some team going through the PR nightmare of signing him. And that's probably maybe where Colin Kaepernick is right now too. And this is where I'll probably, upset a lot of people is I would if I had to choose between Colin Kaepernick and Joe Mixon, I'd take Colin Kaepernick every day of the week. Because I'm not saying I support even Kaepernick's baggage or issues, but I can accept it better because as an American, it's his right to do that. I don't agree with it. I disrespect it. It's totally wrong. But realistically, he's not really physically hurting anybody. Whereas, Joe Mixon has a history of physically hurting somebody. I have a hard time to support that. So I wouldn't draft him. I'll root for him. Hopefully he goes on and signs somewhere and has a good, productive career and stays out of trouble. And the team that uses a 4th or 5th round draft pick on him ends up going, man, this is a really, it was kind of a steal. But I have my doubts. So
yeah, and that's fair to say for you. Every team should go in this with they need to be hesitant because you can't just spend the first, it's not even like the money portion at this point because it's all relatively the same. It's just giving this guy a chance, and I think some team's going to do that.
And I think there's teams that have probably done their homework too. You know, the Chiefs did Tyreek Hill last year. I mean, they did their homework on the guy. There are teams I think would be a good fit for Joe Mixon. The Chiefs would be one of them. I'm not saying I want him there, but that would be a team that I think they have the right nucleus around him. That'd be good. Green Bay is another one. New England. I mean, that's another one that I think would have the right nucleus around him. So, like you said, it's tough. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, there was my little soapbox for the week. About 15 minutes worth. That was. I feel better now. It's kind of relieving some stress. So, transitioning now over into Sean's favorite sport, college basketball.
Ooh,
I know you were thinking about it for a minute. So Sean, this is kind of the part of the season where if you're not in the tournament, you're either playing in another tournament that doesn't really matter, or you're hitting the recruiting trail, or for some teams, you've decided that whatever your coach was doing is not enough, so you clean house and you try to bring something new in. We've already had some coaching changes here early on in the off season, as you want to call it, even though the season's not actually over. You know, what have you thought so far, looking at kind of where coaches are bouncing around to?
I mean, the big one that sticks out in my mind is Underwood going to Illinois, and it's a very good matchup, with them together, because Illinois you can hit Chicago pretty hard because Champaign isn't that far away from Chicago. You can go into Wisconsin. You can maybe even get some guys out of Iowa. You can really dig deep into the Midwest. And he was vastly underpaid, which is
I don't know what
which is a weird way to say because coaches really aren't underpaid, but for the job you're at, he's underpaid. If you know what I mean.
His contract at Oklahoma State was worth around $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Now he's going to be making $3 million a year at Illinois. So I don't blame the guy at all. There's some people that do critique him for jumping ship. I don't blame the guy at all. If you have the chance to make 3 times as much money as you are right now, would you do it?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely would. And I'm not making even at I'm still not at Brad Underwood's vastly underpaid level of $1 million. So yeah, that was kind of a surprise to me, Illinois hiring Brad Underwood from Oklahoma State. I wasn't so much surprised he left. I was more surprised where he ended up. I kind of anticipated probably a Kansas State or even an Indiana would have been a different fit, or a bigger program. But that's more of a lateral move because, like you said, Illinois has some good to it because you're close enough to Chicago, you're close enough to St. Louis, you're close enough to Milwaukee. The Quad Cities produces some good kids sometimes. Indianapolis, you're kind of right there to get the kids, but it wasn't the move I thought. But then also the Big Ten is very wide open. I mean, yeah, they got 3 teams in the Sweet 16, but none of them wowed anybody this year, really. So it's very wide open. One name that we discussed earlier on this week that kind of surprised us that was even considered for the job was Tony Bennett from Virginia. That obviously fell through, but good get for Illinois. Now, what does Oklahoma State do?
I mean, a name they could throw out there is Greg Marshall, but I think the job that he may end up getting is the Indiana job because they could throw a lot of money at him, and I think he could.
Well, really I think there's another job that could open up that maybe Greg Marshall could also get. But
which job is that, Trevor?
That we'll get to that later.
Ooh.
But we're looking into the Oklahoma State job. Like you said, Greg Marshall, Greg Marshall's making like $3 million a year at Wichita State right now. If you're not going to pay Brad Underwood $3 million, Greg Marshall's not going to take a pay cut to go play in the Big 12.
Yeah, he'll have
where he might not. If Greg Marshall wins 27 games every year at Wichita State, he's great. Plus, you got to remember, I believe the big boosters of Wichita State are the Koch brothers.
Yeah, and they're pretty much the only people that are above him.
Yeah, that's literally. I mean, Greg Marshall could probably say, "I want $5 million," and then they would do it. So, yeah, it's going to take a lot of money and a really, really good job for him to leave. And I'm not sure that Oklahoma State is that job. I found this. This is a list of potential candidates from a Oklahoma State website called CowboysRideForFree.com. Interesting website name. Do Cowboys really ride for free? I mean, I guess.
I honestly
don't you have to
know.
buy the horse?
I mean, you could steal the horse.
Yeah, but back in the day, I mean, you get hung for that though. So that's
Well, I mean, if they
risky.
catch you.
But yeah, true. So this has a list of candidates. Some of them kind of the obvious ones. Tom Crean, that guy is going to be rumored for any head coaching job that comes up. A couple that kind of surprised me. Buzz Williams, it's a Virginia Tech. You remember he was at Marquette, left for Virginia Tech, turned that team into a tournament team. That's a little bit of a shocker.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to get out of the ACC, I mean, that's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to get out of playing normally some of the best teams in the nation and then you can go to Oklahoma State. And, I mean, they were still the sixth-place team or fifth-place team in the Big 12. They still have talent, so it's not a complete rebuilding job there.
Couple of guys that are going to be candidates for a lot of these jobs. Chris Holtman from Butler. That guy's done a lot with very little. Archie Miller from Dayton, young guy. I think he's only like 38. He'll be on the move somewhere in the near future. Here's some ones that I wasn't as expecting. Ben Jacobson from Northern Iowa. That's one that I kind of threw out because I've always, following that program, I've always liked Ben Jacobson. Mark Turgeon from Maryland. That'd be an interesting move.
Yeah, I mean, Turgeon's a Kansas guy, so honestly, if I was going to expect him to go anywhere, it would be Kansas. But that, Oklahoma State just doesn't really, pop in my mind.
Andy Enfield from USC, he just took him into the round of 32 with a team that probably didn't have much business being there. But, that's kind of probably a lateral move. I mean, you're getting out of a conference like the Pac-12 where you're probably just one or two recruits away from being able to compete with Arizona and UCLA and
Oregon.
Oregon, yeah, I was forgetting the third team in the Pac-12 that's actually relevant. So, yeah, that'd be kind of an interesting move, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but you'd be going from the Pac-12, which right now is a three-headed monster, to going into the Big 12, which is really just a one-headed monster. And
yeah, everyone else is playing for second. One that is, I know, one of your first, personal favorites, Joe Dooley Bear, a longtime KU assistant. Would you love to see him, coaching the Pokes?
That'd be interesting. I don't know, seeing... now that Bill Self has his own coaching tree, per se, it's kind of interesting to see these guys, go out and coach. Because, Izzo, Krzyzewski, Boeheim, all these guys have their own coaching tree. So now it's really cool to see as time goes on where these guys go and actually see how good of a coach they actually are.
And this one is one that really kind of surprises me because doesn't have any coaching experience whatsoever. But is an Oklahoma State grad. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. It's Doug Gottlieb. And
when I read that, and I love Doug Gottlieb. Is he on CBS still, I believe?
I believe so.
I love Doug Gottlieb, one of my favorite analysts in all of college basketball. Former Oklahoma State point guard. He was actually at Notre Dame before that, but that's not the point. Has said before that would be his dream job. And you could probably get Doug Gottlieb for about the same you're paying Brad Underwood, and he wouldn't complain.
No, but I don't know how good of a coach he is.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
He
seems like a good X's and O's guy, but does that parlay over
to recruiting and all that kind of? He's been an analyst. Because I even remember when he was on ESPN back in the early 2000s, and that's a big step. We've seen guys go from ESPN analyst to head coach in the NBA, but you don't have to recruit. Per se, you can, the place you are pretty much automatically recruits for you.
However, this would be kind of foreign, but it really wouldn't because there was another team in the Big 12 5-6 years ago that hired a former player that had no coaching experience for that. That was?
Fred Hoiberg.
That was Fred Hoiberg, and he had front office experience with the Timberwolves, I believe. But it worked out okay for them.
Yeah. I don't know. I could see it working, but it's a different move. So if it doesn't work out, then everyone's like, fire everyone. But if it does work out, then it may lead to new things happening in the future where guys don't just consider, coaches who are basically retreads. They just keep going from place to place and just doing the same thing and being bad pretty much. And you're just like, oh, well, we'll just get this new bad coach type of thing.
Well, and I think if you gave him time to, and you could actually build something there, because if someone else comes in, who knows that they're there for the long haul? I mean, are they just there, if Mark Turgeon comes in and takes Oklahoma State, to the Elite Eight in 2 or 3 years, has 2, 3, 4 really productive seasons, and then Bill Self bolts for the NBA or whatever, Mark Turgeon's probably the guy at Kansas. Am I right? Same with Joe Dooley.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's tricky. Chris Holtman, who knows where that guy could end up? I mean,
yeah, so
you never know.
I mean, I guess it's good to go and get a guy that has connections because he won't leave as fast,
Yeah. On to one of the other jobs that I find compelling, the California job. Konzo Martin left for Mizzou, which is interesting, but he's from Missouri, so it makes a little bit more sense. This one, I've been looking through, and there's a lot of different guys they kind of have rumored. I'm not sure how familiar you are with some of these names. Randy Bennett, he's head coach St. Mary's right now. He seems to be there right now, go-getter. Familiar with the area, 30 miles apart, I think they are, is what I read. So that'd be an interesting hire.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a fairly good program for as long as I can remember. So it's,
yeah,
it'd be that step to kind of get out of Gonzaga's shadow at this point, because right now they look like a machine that you're not really going to be able to get past.
They are to the West Coast Conference, kind of like what Wichita State was to the Mo Valley before Greg Marshall got there. Before they kind of, when you had Creighton and UNI, and then Wichita State was kind of the third team. That's kind of what they are to the West. They're kind of an afterthought.
Yeah,
they're a really good team. Don't get me wrong, but you just don't think about them when you think about the West Coast Conference. Other head coaches that are rumored for that, Nevada head coach Chris Musselman, they had a good year this year. That wouldn't be too surprising. Ron Gano, he's the former head coach. He's the current head coach actually at Hawaii. I bet Cal fans remember them real well for knocking him out of the tournament last year. Former Nuggets head coach Brian Shaw seems to be a very popular choice too. He's the current associate head coach with the Lakers. He's from the area, played college ball at St. Mary's, so that'd be compelling. Then a couple guys that I don't know a ton about. Joe Pasternak, he's a Arizona assistant coach, former Cal assistant coach there for about 10 years under Mike Montgomery. So once again, I mean, if you want to go for a guy that has a history with the program and understands the way, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, I think you have to get a guy that has that West Coast mentality. Like, I don't think you could take like a Duke assistant coach or a North Carolina assistant coach and have them coach out there, because it's not quite a different game, but it's a different mentality.
Well, and it's totally different too, because you're not recruiting guys from the same areas. Even how many times does Duke go out west and recruit a guy?
Not very often, unless it's like the top recruit in the nation. And even then, you'll see. I
mean, even Midwest. I mean, how often does Kansas go recruit out west? Unless it's one of the top. I mean, is there a single Kansas player on the roster from the West Coast?
I'm trying to remember just off the top of my head because I can't think of the names like right away. I know Svi Mikhailuk they found in
Was it
Portland.
Oregon?
Yeah, like they found him in Oregon. So that just might be one state, because I think Landon Lucas is from around there. Let me quickly.
I believe Landon Lucas isn't he from? No, it's Devontae Graham's from North Carolina, I believe, right?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Yeah, Landon Lucas is from Portland, Oregon, and Svi Mikhailuk is Ukrainian. So they like found him in a Portland gym. It's really crazy how they find these guys, but
it is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
One other potential name for the Cal job, Dennis Gates. He was a former point guard at Cal. He's now an associate head coach at Florida State. So once again, and he was a very popular player at Cal too. So if you're gonna go the traditional route of hiring a guy that understands the way, you're probably going either Pasternak or Gates. But if I had to bet money, I'd say Randy Bennett's probably the head coach at Cal next.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Again, I think they need to have a guy that somewhat knows Cal, because right now they're not a good program.
They're not bad, but they're not good.
What were they?
They were an NIT team this year. They were a 1 seed in the NIT.
1 seed.
They were the first 4 out.
So that I think they were like the 6th seed in the Pac-12. Because I know Utah was the 4.
They were the 6th. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they were the first 4 out. They were a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament last year and got upset by Hawaii. But they were so dinged up without Jalen Brown, and I can't remember who else they were. So I mean, that's not a bad job, but I mean, it's when Konzo Martin's leaving for Mizzou, it makes you wonder. One other one real quick. LSU. That's an open job.
That's such. I mean, the only two reasons that I know LSU is a decent program is because of Shaq
And Ben Simmons.
and Ben Simmons. That's the only reason they even come to my mind. So that's I don't think that's a good job.
I think it could. I mean, the SEC's so wide open, though.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's someone who could go from a mid-major job to LSU, possibly get them up as high as maybe the 2 or the 3 seed.
And then go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's, you look at some of the candidates I've read from NOLA.com. Will Wade from Virginia Commonwealth, you said making that jump. I mean, it's not a bad one. One of my personal favorites, Kermit Davis from Middle Tennessee. That guy's going to end up somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he has. I mean, he's raised Middle Tennessee to this great team that honestly could have been in the Sweet 16 if things came out a little bit better for them.
Tom Crean, of course. Tom Crean's going to be remembered for every single job.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, if you're going to be one of those teams, why don't you just give him a call? Just be like, hey, this is yada, yada, yada.
I've always said that you give anybody that you think even would maybe say yes. Like right now, if I was at Indiana, there's about 5 coaches in college basketball that I would not call. I wouldn't call Coach K. I wouldn't call Bill Self. I wouldn't call Rick Pitino. That might be about it. You know, I might just toggle and see how much money it would take John Calipari to leave or whatever. I wouldn't touch. Did I say Tom Izzo? I wouldn't touch Tom Izzo because you're probably not getting that guy to leave. But I would definitely be calling some people and just gauging your interest. Eric Musselman, another usual suspect. Steve Forbes, one of my favorites from Iowa, the coach at East Tennessee State now. Could be him. Buzz Williams, another one that's going to be rumored for quite a few of these jobs. And then one that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, Kelvin Sampson from Houston. I believe he was at Oklahoma and Indiana. Had some troubles there. I would stay away from him.
Yeah.
On to what I think is the most compelling job right now, Sean. One, because I'm a Big Ten guy, and two, because they have a deep history. The Indiana job, who's going to get that?
Go throw like $6 million a year at Greg Marshall.
See, I don't think Marshall takes that job. I think right now there is already a head coach for the University of Indiana whose team is still coaching in the NCAA tournament.
Oh.
You want to guess who it is?
Frank Martin.
No, but I could see Frank Martin going somewhere though, but not Indiana.
I'm trying to think of like low. Okay, is it a lower or a higher team? Like
It's a higher team.
it's a higher team.
To the outside eye, it might not make sense.
To the outside eye, is it a so to me would this seem like a downgrade, but to you, you're like this. Could
To you, it would be a downgrade, but to me, it's not. I'll let you think about it for a second. Indiana, they relieved Tom Crean of his duties just 1 year after he won the Big Ten title. This was kind of a disappointing year for them. They were ranked as high as 3 this year, I believe.
Maybe I'm like looking through all the teams linking
They
their coaches.
they beat. Sean can't focus. They beat Kansas, right, earlier this year.
Yeah, that's when they were like really rolling on all cylinders, and it just kind of.
They have the best win and worst loss probably in all of college basketball. Was it at Allen Fieldhouse they won?
No. It was on the aircraft carrier or whatever. It was in.
Oh yeah.
It was in Hawaii. It was a really cool thing.
And then they turn around 2 days later and lose to Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne, or whatever. Yeah, bad loss. They relieved him of his duties. Figured out yet, Sean? Or I just need to tell you?
I don't know. Is it which conference is he in?
It's in the Pac-12.
What? The Oregon coach?
No.
Is it Alford?
It is Steve Alford.
Goodness.
Steve Alford. That job is Steve Alford's. I'd be willing to bet any amount of money on it that. He's from Indiana. He played in Indiana. He's a legend in Bloomington. I mean, people love that guy. To me, there's no way he doesn't take that job. And I can go off on a whole nother rant about Steve Alford. I don't know that I need to, but Alford from Indiana played in the NBA for a couple years. Wasn't really that great of a player. Fun fact: there were a lot of people in Indiana that were upset that the Pacers passed on Steve Alford. The Pacers drafted with that pick?
Larry Bird.
Reggie Miller.
Okay.
Would you rather?
I didn't know
would you rather have Reggie Miller or Steve Alford?
I will take Reggie Miller every day.
Yeah, I will take Reggie Miller twice every day. But yeah, so Alford ended up coaching at Manchester College, wherever that is. Moved to Southeast Missouri State. Got them to the Sweet 16. They're now Missouri State. Bolted for Iowa. There was a lot of stuff going on at Iowa that made Steve Alford a not very liked person in the state. There was an incident in about 2002, 2003, where a player named Pierre Pierce was charged with sexual assault of, I believe it was like an administrator's, don't quote me on this, but an administrator's daughter. I don't know what it was. It was a totally terrible situation. And Alford went to bat for the guy and defended him and tried to downplay the situation, only to later on have Pierce get charged with another sexual assault crime that totally just destroyed Alford's credibility. He openly looked into the Mizzou job when it was open. I think it was when they hired Mike Anderson. Openly expressed his interest in the Mizzou job and then denied having any interest in it, which is funny because now he probably could have taken that Mizzou job if he really, really wanted it. Just kind of a shady guy, but be a good hire for Indiana because Alford's been kind of a nomad in college basketball. Yeah, they're having a great year at UCLA this year, but it's because they have Lonzo Ball. It's not because of Steve Alford.
Yeah, they had 17 losses last year?
Yeah. There were people holding, protests outside with signs saying, "Fire Alford." You know, it's not the most cozy feeling for Steve Alford right now in UCLA, I'm sure. So, and his son Bryce, a player for him, he's a senior this year, so that's not holding him back. Steve Alford will be the coach of Indiana. I'll mark it down.
Yeah, and then UCLA will have to go find
Greg Marshall.
someone. See, now, okay, that's weird. Just taking a Midwest guy to the West Coast, so I don't know if they actually go.
Steve Alford was a Midwest guy.
That's true. I mean, I guess
Ben Howland was an East Coast guy when they hired him from Pitt.
UCLA also needed to do something to kind of become relevant.
But could you imagine Greg Marshall with the not saying Wichita State doesn't have good access stuff, but could you imagine Greg Marshall with the access he'd have to recruit the Los Angeles area? I think it'd be funny just to see him deal with LaMelo and LiAngelo Ball's dad. I think that would be because I think Greg Marshall would probably tell him to shut up.
Probably
or his wife would, one of the two.
Yeah, she had a fun weekend. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But it was nothing's gonna be certain until they sign the papers, and I'm pretty excited to see where some of these coaches go because I'm sure one or two of them will be like, okay, wow,
yeah.
That's
we could see
signing.
Bill Self leave for Oklahoma State.
Oh, okay. So side note about that. Whenever they played in the it was either 2012 or 2008 national title game, they kind of teased it and it was a thing going that week. It was they're just trying to get into Kansas's head, and they were actually throwing at him the largest coaching deal that you could possibly get.
He played at Okie State, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen, but you never know. It is crazy season, so
I don't know. I can almost never see a coach leaving in conference.
No, but it happens.
I mean, it does, but it.
One name I would keep an eye on too for maybe even UCLA that I would keep an eye on, and this might transition perfectly over into our next segment. Chris Collins from Northwestern. I mean, that guy's got the chance to probably be a coach at a big-time program. But the problem with that is if UCLA hires Chris Collins, who's not to say in 3 or 4 years when Coach K retires, if it's that soon, that he isn't compelled by that job. So who knows? I guess we'll see. We could come back to the show next week and all these jobs be filled and us be totally wrong.
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to be. But
yeah, speaking of totally wrong, go to our brackets now, Sean. March Madness tipped off Thursday. My favorite part is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then parts of Sunday. What'd you take away from this weekend?
I enjoy college basketball. That's
your whole takeaway from the whole weekend?
Okay, from the whole weekend, there weren't a lot of upsets, honestly. Well, okay.
Not in the first round.
The first round, I think the biggest upset was Xavier over Maryland.
Yeah, that had to be the biggest upset. And that really wasn't that surprising because Xavier's been kind of dinged up all year. Maryland hasn't really been impressive. Like you said a couple weeks ago, you can't really trust Maryland. But yeah, there was it Middle Tennessee?
They were
over Minnesota. They were a 1 point favorite.
Or, yeah, one point favorite.
Yeah, that's not an upset.
No.
Because I bet 80% of the brackets had Middle Tennessee winning. because Vegas was telling him to. That's not an upset.
Nope.
I'm sorry, it's not. There was another one that was kind of like that too. I can't remember which one it was. I'm drawing a blank on it, but USC over SMU, was that maybe an upset? I guess. I mean,
yeah, I guess that was pretty much the closest thing we had to an upset because SMU, they can score and it just didn't come. The pieces didn't go right for SMU to end the game.
So going to the second round or the first round, I guess now, because it used to be the second round, now it's the first. The round of 64. What do you feel like was like the best game in that round?
Okay, well, let me try and remember for just a little bit. I'm just going to look.
Because I got mine. To me personally, I think it was, and I think a lot of people agree with me, I think it was a Vanderbilt-Northwestern game. Vanderbilt shouldn't have been in the tournament in the first place, and they showed why they shouldn't be in the tournament. I mean, when you're a school that's tuition is $63,000, and your athletes cannot remember that when you're up by 1 with 15 seconds to go to not foul. I mean, that whole game was just crazy. You have the storyline of Northwestern coming into the tournament, having never been there before. It seems like every journalist in all of sports is a Northwestern fan.
I mean, it is a good journalism.
It is a great journalism school, but it was a very interesting matchup. Northwestern had like a 15-point lead at one point. It dwindled down. Vanderbilt took the lead, and then a series of stupid events from Vanderbilt. Bryce Drew, I should say, not Scott Drew. Yeah, same person. Calling a timeout his last timeout was 7 minutes to go. And then you have the intentional foul by, is it Evan Fisher Davis, I believe, that puts Northwestern on the line to shoot 2 when they're down 1. And then you have the chance kid from Vanderbilt throwing up like a Steph Curry type 3 when you had like 8 seconds left on the clock. So I thought it was a great ending. I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, that was probably the second best game in my mind. But the one I'm going to pick is
Kansas UC Davis.
No, Michigan, Oklahoma State.
Oh, that was a fun one.
That was fun. Best, I don't know. There wasn't a lot of defense played in this game. I thought it was great, honestly. It was,
those are like two of the worst defenses in the tournament.
I don't think Michigan's as bad of a defense, but I think Oklahoma State's one of the best scoring teams, and they showed why.
And Oklahoma State's a terrible defense.
Yeah, that's an actual understatement. They are one of the worst Division I teams at playing defense.
I would have liked to have seen them in UCLA play in a first round matchup or a second round.
Just give
over under 200 combined points.
Probably
right at
because it's really
like
hard
101.99 or something like that.
It's really hard to get over 100 for both teams. Ooh.
But yeah, I thought it was a really good game too. Up tempo, not a ton of defense, lots of points though. Vegas kind of didn't quite get the end of that game. They were a 3-point favorite? Michigan was?
Michigan, I think they were a 2-point favorite, and Oklahoma State hit a 3-pointer at the end of the game to make it a 1-point game. So
yeah,
that's
Vegas lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on that.
Vegas knows though. I mean,
yeah, but it was a great game. Michigan, they're on a roll right now. They look hot. Going on to the second round, Sean. Man, there was a lot in the second round, wasn't there?
Yeah, this was the most interesting part because for all the not action we got on for the first round,
there wasn't action. Like there were good games,
but there weren't prototypical upsets.
There weren't like upsets, but like really, there weren't like a ton of bad games really, other than like the 116 matchups. But we kind of anticipated that, but there just wasn't like that. Oh man, I can't believe that 15 seed beat the 2 seed. There wasn't that. So maybe that's what you're going off of. But anyways, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, the second round delivered in busting brackets since like minute 1 that Saturday tipped off. I mean,
yeah,
we started with the West Virginia Notre Dame game. That was just good. That was just a good game.
That was quality from where both teams played pretty sound defensively, and there weren't a lot of sloppy possessions. I mean, West Virginia did a great job of creating turnovers. And Notre Dame kept clawing back in, but they could just never quite find a way to get to it.
Yeah, and then the second game on Saturday, oh my goodness. Villanova gets upset by Wisconsin. And you've talked about this, how Villanova kind of got the short end of the stick with Wisconsin, and I have a bit of a different mentality, kind of. Yes, they did get the short end of the stick, but if you're the number one team in the country, it doesn't matter who you play at this point. Like,
well, I think all the 8 seeds played the 1 seeds pretty well. I mean, Arkansas almost beat North Carolina.
You know, I didn't think yesterday that the North Carolina-Arkansas game was going to be close. You know, I messaged you, and I was like, this game's actually close. Like, I expected Arkansas to not put up a fight or, you know, maybe North Carolina play better than they actually did.
But, you know, Wisconsin was an 8 seed. They were a runner-up in the Big Ten.
Correct.
That's, you know, it shows how lowly the committee thought of the Big Ten. But guess who's laughing now? The Big Ten, because they have 3 teams in the Sweet 16.
Well, I mean, it's definitely not Villanova because they got beat.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was a great game, though. I mean, I watched most of that game, and definitely towards the end, that was just crazy. Wisconsin's a very experienced team with Vito Brown and Nigel Hayes and Bronson Koenig and Ethan Happ and Zach Showalter. Just very, very experienced. I think Showalter might actually be an Iowa transfer. But, yeah, very, very experienced team they have there, and now they're on to the Sweet 16. The Big Ten, like we said, they got 3 teams into the Sweet 16. Man, they were close to getting a 4th, weren't they?
Kind of. For 30 minutes of the game, yes, Michigan State was close, and then that's honestly one of the best 10 minutes I've seen Kansas play this entire year.
Oh, I wasn't talking about that one.
Oh, well, I am. Okay, which one are you talking about?
I was talking about the Northwestern Gonzaga game.
So that entire way that ended, the goaltending call, bad. The fact that he came out onto the court like the way he did, bad. Because, yes, it's a extremely bad call, but you can't react like that because that was the exact moment that his team lost the game.
Yeah, and my take on that is that was an awful, awful call by the official, obviously. And for those of you that didn't see the call, or didn't watch the game, Gonzaga was up by 20 at one point in the first half, 0.2.
Yeah, because Gonzaga came out and they didn't exactly play a fantastic first half, but they came out, played their game, and the Wildcats they couldn't play basketball.
They were so sloppy. I mean, they were so sloppy. But they trimmed it down to 5. They're down 5 with about 4 minutes to go. So yeah, 4.5. Driving in the lane, their big guy, I can't remember if it was McIntosh or who it was, drives in, gets rejected, goes out of bounds. What you don't see when it happened, because when it happened so fast, I thought maybe it was a foul, but I didn't see it at first. And the TV replay slows it down, shows it. The Gonzaga defender, and I don't remember which one it was, his hand is through the net, essentially. So there's no way he can make it. It's basket interference. Basket should count. Chris Collins obviously saw it better than we did. Runs out on the court, screaming and yelling, gets teed up. That one, it was the referee missed the call as far as it should have been basket interference. However, by definition of the rule, Collins deserved the technical. I think he would tell you that it was a justified technical, because you can't come onto the court. But how many times have we seen? I saw in the Wichita State game yesterday, John Calipari says, he walks. Not like as far on the court as Chris Collins did, but on the court, Calipari doesn't get teed up. Patino does it all the time.
I think it also comes with who you are.
Exactly. If Chris Collins was coaching at Duke right now,
I don't think. See, but it's also the way he reacted. He was so angry about it, which he has the right to be, but it's. I mean, it is a technical foul. That's. I don't think the ref did anything wrong with calling of the technical because he,
No, I don't really know that he had much of a choice with that, but I think Chris Collins would tell you he'd do it over and over again if he had to.
Obviously, yeah, because I think what he did was wrong and right at the same time, where he should have held back because I think they had a way better chance to win if he does because that's two shots plus the ball, and I'm pretty sure they made those free throws.
I think they missed one.
Either way, that just kind of
because it was a 5-point game and then it was a 7-point game plus the ball. He makes that shot without the no call. It's a 3-point game, and it was and it killed.
What it was a 3-point game before. Okay, 5 point but then with goaltending would have been 3.
Yeah.
And then it turned to 7, so that's a 4-point swing before
Plus-
Gonzaga even passes the ball back in.
Plus, it totally killed all the momentum Northwestern had. I mean, because momentum was totally on Northwestern's side. I won't ever say that cost them the game because there was a lot of other things. You know, if like you said, if Northwestern even plays twice as good or 75% as good in the first half as they did, they probably win that game.
Yeah.
But they just sucked for the first 20 minutes.
They had, I think,
like 8 points in the first 13 minutes.
and it was awful. And then they had 10 and 14. I'm like, you can't beat anybody playing like that.
They just sucked in the first 12 minutes or so. But I was rooting for Northwestern epically. I am a Gonzaga fan, really, but I was rooting for them really hard. And Chris Collins, he seems to have it there. I feel like this isn't just kind of a fluke. I think he's the real deal, and I think eventually one of these bigger programs is going to realize that.
Yep.
So, trying to think what else is there going on this week. There were some close ones. Oh, yeah, I remember what other one was going on. Yeah, my bracket is officially busted by
So
South.
is mine, but not for like the entirely same reason. Close to the same reason.
By South Carolina of all teams. If you'd have told me these teams are going to be Duke, I would have said Marquette made more sense than South Carolina.
I mean, South Carolina came out and scored 65 points in the second half.
There were like 11 games this year. South Carolina didn't even score that in a game. This is a team that we have openly talked about. They don't really play a ton of offense. I watched them play, I can't remember if it was Georgia or Arkansas earlier on in the season, just a game that was on ESPN. And I thought, oh my goodness, this team can't score. This team is offensively awful. They play good defense, but that doesn't help if you can't score points.
I mean, we'll talk about a game kind of like that in just a bit. But I had Duke in my national championship for my bracket, losing to Kansas. I didn't know what to think of yesterday's game. I was going to message you and be like, oh, look, Trevor, Duke's losing. But this is like, I don't even know what Duke could have done other than make more shots. Like South Carolina couldn't miss.
And Duke got themselves in some trouble, though. You know, Grayson Allen kind of struggled. And Grayson Allen was non-existent in the second half, really. He had 1-3, and I think he drove in and got an and one once. Kennard was in foul trouble. Tatum was in foul trouble. Jefferson just couldn't get anything to go for him. I mean, Duke was they had to play better, and they did, and they didn't. So that was tough. But can we agree on at least one thing about that game, though?
Maybe.
The pants that Frank Martin were wearing.
That was a weird ensemble.
Awesome.
It was different colored jacket.
I don't even remember. All I was paying attention to was the pants.
I mean,
was it black jacket, maroon pants?
No, it was red and red. It was a different shade of maroon.
I just remember seeing the pants and being like, I don't know where he got those, but I want a pair. So, I mean, good for him. Good for Frank Martin. He's turning that program around. So, yeah. And this, I guess, brings me real quickly before we get into our predictions. I kind of asked this question to some of my coworkers this morning, and I think I know your answer to this. If you could play for any coach in the nation right now, who would it be? I know you're probably going to say Bill Self. So who would be your second choice?
I mean, I'd probably play for Coach K. He's a great coach, and I think this year they, other than at the end of the year, Duke had a lot of stuff going on that they couldn't really get past, but I was expecting them to not have a problem with South Carolina, and it was truly shocking to see what happened yesterday.
To me, there's Coach K's one of them. There's one other guy that I think I would like to play for, and that's Tom Izzo.
Yeah, I was going to say, the other good coaches, or one other good coach would be Calipari, but I don't even know if
Calipari's one of those guys that would be, I think, good to play for, because nobody's going to try to get you to the NBA. That's the thing, but I don't know that I wouldn't want to play for Calipari. Patino, I wouldn't want to play for Patino.
Williams, could you play for Roy?
Yeah, maybe it's because I hate North Carolina so much. I probably could.
Yeah,
I could play Jay Wright. I'd play for Jay Wright.
Jay Wright's not as good of a coach as the other guys, but
I'd if Brad Stevens was still in college, Brad Stevens.
I could go play for him in the NBA because I'm getting paid. Side point.
But yeah, so it's just an interesting little question.
So
couldn't pay me enough to play for Jim Boeheim though.
So before we get into this week's predictions, there's one game in particular that I thoroughly enjoyed because this is the game that after Wisconsin beat Villanova, I was like, Trevor, there's a possibility we could see this horrible matchup. Trevor enjoys it, but Virginia.
It's not that
Florida,
I enjoy it. I enjoy you suffering.
Virginia played Florida, and my goodness, is Virginia awful at offense. It's dumpster fire.
See, I didn't watch the game.
Dumpster fire.
What was the 65-39?
65-39.
Yeah, you can't even get over 40 in a game. And it's not even like sometimes you see those games where it's like a 51-50 game and teams are just playing really good defense.
Mm-hmm. That's what the Kentucky Wichita State game was in the first half.
Yeah.
And you and I messaged each other, and you were like first to 50. I was like, I think it's going to be first to 60, just
And
the way,
sure enough.
just the way these teams are coming out in the second half.
See, but Wisconsin can at least play offense.
Yeah, but if they would have played Virginia, I think it would have been first to 35, and it would have been awful television, and I might have just had that game on in the background and been like, okay, let's check the score. Oh, it hasn't moved in 17 minutes. Wow.
It's 12-11 at the half.
I mean, and then they could come out and surprise us and score 50 points, but
50 points would surprise you.
Yeah, maybe combined 50, but
Yeah, that would have been an interesting game. First to 35 wins. Wisconsin over Virginia 35-31.
Oh, goodness.
Bronson Koenig leads with 5 points. Yeah, that would be crazy. But thankfully Florida took care of it, so that doesn't have to happen. Sweet 16 teams. There's 16 of them. That'll go on Thursday, Friday, and then the Elite Eight Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
We'll pull those up here for you. I know in the East region you have 8-seed Wisconsin. I'm drawing a blank on it. 4-seed Florida, or 4-seed Florida, and then Baylor, South Carolina. Raise your hand if you had Baylor, South Carolina as your Sweet 16 matchup.
No one did.
Yeah, no one did.
I mean, I think Baylor has a decent shot to make it to the Final Four, and if you would have told me that before the first week, I would have said that you're just straight up lying to my face.
Something I forgot to get to earlier when we were talking about it, but one of the names I was looking at that was rumored for the Indiana coaching job, Scott Drew. He's from Indiana. It would make sense.
Good for him.
Wouldn't you love to see that guy out of the Big 12?
No, because then Baylor can get a real good ex-of-the-nose coach.
But yeah, Baylor has a realistic chance of winning that region. So we'll go on to the next one, which is the West. You have top seed Gonzaga, 4-seed West Virginia, 2-seed Arizona, and 11-seed Xavier.
Yeah, but they're not a team that hasn't been here before, and we've had a lot of prototypical teams make it in this year. Xavier's there's not a really big Cinderella team, and I guess the biggest Cinderella would be South Carolina.
Did you see the beatdown they put on Florida State?
I did. I enjoyed it.
I told you all year I wasn't sold on Florida State. I had them losing a round earlier than they did, but I wasn't sold. The games, those are, like I said, Thursday, Friday. Going on to the Midwest, you have Kansas, Purdue, and Michigan, Oregon. Those are some quality matchups, I think.
Yeah. I'm really glad someone has to play Michigan before
Kansas does?
Well, if Kansas beat Purdue, but Michigan's... They're a very interesting team because Walton, he's not this great player, or wasn't this great player. He just kind of turned it on at the end of his senior year. And
Michigan looks like a team of destiny right now.
Kind of, but it's because of a plane that slid off a runway.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good story.
It's an incredible story.
I do not hope they win for my Kansas team's sake. But if they do, it's still a fantastic
You're telling
story.
me, though, that if Michigan makes it to the Final Four and they beat Kansas on, I don't know, a Derek Walton 35-foot jumper down 3 and they send it to overtime after Kansas posts a 9-point lead with 2 minutes to go. Sound familiar?
Very.
Okay, so just saying they make it to the Final Four. You're telling me that it won't tug at your heartstrings a little bit to pick Michigan.
At that point, then I can pick them. But until they actually beat Kansas, then no, I'm not going to.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you for that. The other region, the South region, this one's going to be a fun one. North Carolina and...
Butler.
Yikes, that's going to be a brutal matchup. I think it'll be a good matchup. That matchup doesn't entertain me. I don't know why. Butler hasn't impressed me this year.
Well, maybe they will, and they'll beat North
Hopefully
Carolina.
they do. I hope they beat North Carolina. And then the other one is Kentucky UCLA. That is going to be a fun one.
That score is going to be 98-93.
Yeah. So, yeah, looking at those are your matchups. On Thursday night, it's Michigan, Oregon, West Virginia, Gonzaga, Purdue, Kansas, Xavier, Arizona. And then on Friday night, you have North Carolina, Butler, South Carolina, Baylor, UCLA, Kentucky, and Wisconsin, Florida. Sean, I guess it's time now we just kind of make some predictions because by the time we go on next Monday, we'll have our Final Four set.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess you want to start in the East. We'll just kind of work our way down.
yeah, let's do that, shall we?
So with Wisconsin, Florida, I mean, this is going to be a good matchup because these are two teams that I didn't think was I thought Florida was going to be here. Didn't think Wisconsin was going to be here. Florida can score, and they play a decent amount of defense. It's not like the Wisconsin or Virginia level of defense, but they defend people, which is good. Trying to be a good team, you should defend. I think Wisconsin also might be kind of not quite like a team of destiny, but I think they have something to prove, and I think Wisconsin picks up this win, and I think that they have the experience, and they're also a very long team. With Koenig and Hayes and Happ, they've all been here before, and so I think that they'll be able to get past Florida.
Okay, going on to the next one in that, you have Baylor, South Carolina. What are you thinking?
This is Frank Martin versus Scott Drew. And to be honest, the only reason Frank Martin is even at South Carolina is because him and the Kansas State.
Yeah, who's no longer even the AD now.
up.
John
Yeah.
Curry didn't get along, which sounds like that's a pretty common theme in Manhattan.
Yeah. I think Baylor's going to get this because they just have the size. Watching the game yesterday, Motley kind of got into some foul trouble, and that's pretty much the only reason that they didn't win by more and why it was such a close game, because I think he's such a dominant inside presence that if he doesn't get into foul trouble, they should have no problem in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go – did you go Florida or Wisconsin?
Wisconsin.
Yeah, see, I'm going to go Wisconsin too. I think they're playing really well right now. I haven't been sold on Florida much all year. They just played a Virginia team that obviously offensively was garbage. Wisconsin just beat Villanova. Give me the Badgers. This one, as much as I would love to go with the story of South Carolina making the Elite Eight with Frank Martin in his super cool pants, I just don't see it happening. I think Motley and Co. are just too big and bad for them. So I'm going to take Baylor into the Elite Eight. We'll come back around to pick our Final Four for what we think. Sean, the West right now, you have Gonzaga and West Virginia. Then you have Arizona, Xavier. What do you think?
I'm going to go press Virginia and Arizona. I think Gonzaga hasn't played a defense this good, and West Virginia makes you play the worst you've played all year.
Yes.
Pretty much. It's going to be interesting to see how they play against it, because you don't see the press that often unless it's like late in games trying to get turnovers, that type of thing. But, I mean, they haven't really been down that often or been that close.
Yeah, and I'm going the same because Gonzaga kind of showed me the other day, you could just kind of tell by watching the team, they weren't really used to playing close games. And press Virginia, they kind of dominated Notre Dame without actually score-wise dominating them. I mean, they were in control for basically that whole game. So I'm going to go press Virginia in that one. Going to the Midwest, Sean, I think I know which way you're going with this. Kansas, Purdue, and then Michigan, Oregon.
This game scares me because Caleb Swanigan is a man.
He's a manster.
He's Biggie Swanigan.
Can Landon Lucas defend him?
I think he can defend him. I think he showed that he can handle the inside presence. If he gets into foul trouble, I don't think Carlton Bragg can defend anything. As we showed yesterday, I think I messaged you and I was like, get him off the court. I don't want to see him. He missed a layup and then had a really bad foul. But Dwight Colby coming off the bench has been a surprising bright spot for Kansas right now, because he had a leg injury and he transferred in from Ole Miss. And, I think he's kind of the prototypical guy that Bill Self has for a big man, a big, strong guy, not quite like Lucas. He's tall, but he's not built, per se. And I think the point guard play for Kansas is way better than Purdue, and I think Josh Jackson right now is kind of coming on. And if he can play the 4 and not get into foul trouble, then this Kansas team is scary.
I think Josh Jackson is the difference maker this weekend. I just think that.
I think
because Vincent Edwards is playing pretty good guard play for Purdue, but I don't think he's enough. If Josh Jackson goes off and has a game that he's capable of having, I think Kansas wins it. But if they get totally manhandled by the manster that is Caleb Swanigan along with Isaac Haas, who's pretty dominant down low, Purdue is like one of my favorite teams because it's kind of like a throwback.
It's what Kansas normally is, if you understand me. Because
it's like Cole Aldridge.
Kansas, up until this year, ran 2 big guys and then 3 guards, and that's just what they run. And this year, it's now 4 guards with 1 big guy, and this is, because they really couldn't put 2 big guys out there. They just couldn't afford to do that. And back to your point of Josh Jackson going off in the game yesterday, Frank Mason did not play very well to his standards. He still had like 20 points, which is like, okay, like he had a bad game scoring 20 with eight assists and then 0 turnovers. I mean, he still had a decent game, but I don't think he hit a 3. His game was just off, but Josh Jackson came in after the first 8 minutes, kind of not playing good defense, kind of just taking shots. And, if they can play like that, it's really, really hard to be able to beat Kansas.
So I'm guessing you pick Kansas to beat Purdue, and I'm going to take Kansas too. I
think they can do it. I think Lucas is going to have to not get into foul trouble, because if he gets into foul trouble, I don't think Kansas's bench can contain the Purdue bigs.
But I'm gonna roll the dice on Landon Lucas doing that. So I'm gonna be with you and take Kansas. And I'm Michigan, Oregon. What do you think? I'm going Michigan all the way. They're playing too hot right now. They're like a team of destiny. Oregon barely got. I don't know so much that Oregon won that game as Rhode Island lost that game by not being able to rebound.
Yeah, I thought that Rhode Island would beat Oregon because I think the size and inside that Oregon doesn't have right now would come back to bite them, and I thought it would up until the end of the game. And Michigan just scares me because they're playing hot right now, and I didn't even think that they would beat Louisville until they really came on, and I wouldn't say that it surprised me, but after the first half, I was like, they're not going to beat them. And then the second half was like, oh, we're going to shoot 70% from the field. Like, yes,
Michigan's a very balanced team because Derek Walton's coming on. Irvin's playing real well. You got I can't think of his name, the German kid, is it Morel or Morel?
I don't know.
Can't remember.
Wagner's also really good because he's
that might be who it is.
I don't
know. Moritz Wagner.
Something like that. I don't know. They have a big white guy.
That'd be him. I couldn't remember his last name.
He's a good inside presence, and he can shoot the 3.
Duncan Robinson's another one that, he can attack the lane. He can pull up and shoot the 3. That team looks, like you said, that team looks scary. So I think we're in agreement there. We're both taking the Wolverines, or are you going with the Ducks?
I think I'm going to take the Wolverines. I don't trust Oregon, but because they've now had 2 games to be able to adjust our offense, maybe they can take this off, and maybe Michigan cools off just a little bit. But I'm going to pick the Wolverines, but I could see this game going either way, and I think this is probably one of my closer games of the weekend.
Going into the South region now, you have North Carolina taking on, I'm drawing a blank on this again, Butler. Well, what do you see in that matchup? I like North Carolina. I want to pick Butler, but North Carolina is, I think, too talented. Yeah. But Butler's beat Villanova twice this year.
I don't think North Carolina played very well yesterday. I think they should hopefully come out and have something to prove, because I don't think that Arkansas game should have been close.
It should have been a 20-point game.
Maybe.
Yeah, they had to go on a 12-0 run to win the game.
Yeah. Trevor's over here almost dying.
Yeah.
But I think Butler, they haven't lost a game when they've been the higher seed. Now they're the lower seed, so we'll see, kind of what happens with that. They were like 10-0 so far when they're the higher seed, and if they can keep winning, because they're not fantastic. They don't wow you, but they get the job done, and that's all you have to do at this time.
Yeah. So going on to the other matchup, this is maybe one of the fun ones of the weekend. Kentucky, UCLA. What do you think?
Points.
Yeah, lots of points.
UCLA and Kentucky played earlier.
Bold prediction. LeVar Ball at some point this week is going to say that he can outcoach John Calipari.
Well, he probably could.
Yeah, he probably could.
Not going to be able to get the recruits, but
I don't know. I think he could.
I think this game is going to be fantastic. I think UCLA wins because I think they've done it before. Kentucky, they really didn't have a good game against Wichita State.
And that'll be a Sunday game if it happens.
Yeah.
Or not the UCLA. That's Friday night. My bad. But
Yeah.
the elite eight for that would be this Sunday. So yeah, Friday night, 8:39 tip off.
It's a good time.
I'm excited.
Let me just speak a second to the Wichita State Kentucky game. I think if Wichita State doesn't have the worst 2 possessions of possibly the entire weekend, then we see UCLA Wichita State.
With the 2 block shots.
Yeah, like just the
Yeah.
way those occurred. I mean, that was great by
Monk.
Kentucky to be able to get the block shots. But the way that it was drawn up and all that stuff, it was like, what are you doing? I don't think you've watched basketball, coached basketball, touched a basketball. Like, it was bad.
So Kentucky, UCLA, who you like?
I think I'm going to take UCLA. I think Ball's just that good.
See, Ball is that good, but Kentucky's got way more around their pieces that are that good. So I'm going to take Kentucky. I like Malik Monk right now. He's kind of struggling, but the rest of the team's kind of, picking up around him. Adebayo. Bam Adebayo.
It's a good name.
Idris Bam Adebayo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna take Kentucky. I think they're playing really well right now. So Sean, that takes us into our Elite Eight, or into our Elite Eight matchups. Your Final Four teams going into next Monday when we sit down. Who do you expect to see in the Final Four?
Out of the East, I think I'm going to take Baylor because I think they have the size to beat any team in this tournament. And this will come down to how good Scott Drew can coach. And I'm not honestly trusting that, but I think Baylor can go in and show people that they've been wrong about this team because
I think a Baylor-Wisconsin matchup would actually be a lot of fun.
yeah, I think it'd be a lot of size and people making shots and all that stuff.
Yeah, which is good. So you're going Baylor in that. I'm with you. I want to go Wisconsin, but I think this seems like a year that Baylor will somehow get to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've made it out of the first 2 rounds. Their size with Motley is just, it's unbelievable. And LeCompte's playing good. Give me
he didn't play as well yesterday, but
he's still playing good.
He did play well for about the final 5 minutes, but before that he didn't have a point. Then he scored 8 points in a row and just led Baylor to victory.
Give me the Bears into the Final Four. So going on to the West now, we both had Arizona and Press Virginia. What do you think?
I mean, this is going to be very homerish, but I think that West Virginia can pull it out, I guess, because Arizona really, again, hasn't played a team that can press like this. They haven't really seen that good of a defense playing in the Pac-12. But it's so hard because when you get down to these 2 teams, each team does things well, and Arizona's, I think they're a better team, but I think the style matchup favors West Virginia.
I'm going to go with the advantage of them being the better team. I think Arizona's can score enough to maybe overcome the Press Virginia. So I'm going to take Arizona on that one. The Midwest, Sean. Kansas, Michigan. Does Sean come in Monday happy or sad?
Either way, I think this will be a great matchup if it's that.
Or do you want to see Purdue, Michigan on?
I do not want to see Purdue.
Would that be the Sunday Elite Eight game?
No, it'll be
Saturday.
It'll be Saturday.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't like seeing conference teams play again. Mainly because it's not my team, but still, it's just okay. I've seen that before. I enjoy seeing these new matchups. I mean, even with the Kentucky, UCLA game, yes, they've played before, but that was so early on.
So Kentucky, North Carolina too. On that note, early on in the season.
True, yeah, but that's again early on. But Kansas, Purdue, Kansas, Michigan, Purdue, Michigan. I'm gonna take Kansas. It's a slight homer pick. Because I think if they can play the way they did in the final 10 minutes of the Michigan State game, that they can beat anybody in this tournament. The problem is the first 30 minutes, they couldn't shoot a 3. And so, I'm probably going to get about 20 minutes of that Kansas, maybe 5 minutes of the good Kansas. I don't know, because they, haven't shown me that they can do that for long periods of time.
I have the Big 12 with 3 teams in the Elite Eight. I have Baylor, West Virginia, and Kansas. I already have Baylor in the Final Four. Baylor will be the only Big 12 team in the Final Four. I think Michigan right now, like I said, they're a team of destiny. This kind of seems familiar, doesn't it, Sean?
Yeah. Connecticut from a few years ago,
that too.
You know.
Yeah, they were what, an 7 seed? They were a 7. No, they were an 8 seed.
I think there were 7.
I think they were. Either way, they played really well, and because
they were led by senior
Shabazz Napier, right?
Well, and Kemba Walker.
Yeah, you're going way back to that one.
Oh, well, still.
I mean, they've had 2 different ones. That's how impressive they've been. So, yeah, I think, I'm with you. I like Michigan on that one just because it kind of seems familiar. I was more talking about the Michigan-Kansas Sweet 16 game from 2013, but
that just hurts.
Yeah, this one might hurt too.
Well, it'll be like a kind of different thing because like that's a 4 seed, and like this team actually is like a team of destiny. Kansas was literally up 8, and it was like, okay, this game's over, and then just you're like, what is happening? This is just going out of control right in front of my eyes.
So give me Michigan in that one. On to the South then. You have North Carolina, UCLA. I have North Carolina, Kentucky.
This is hard.
It is really hard.
Because UNC, I mean, they're not, they don't really have a flaw.
No.
While UCLA does, but like, does North Carolina play good enough defense to be able to stop UCLA is pretty much the big thing. I think I'm going to take North Carolina out of this. I think they can do enough. I think the coaching matchup, and I don't think that the talent level is that much different there for North Carolina to not be able to beat UCLA.
I'm going to take Kentucky over North Carolina. I just think Kentucky right now. Kentucky might be the favorite now with Duke out and Villanova out.
So, I mean, right now it's Kansas is the betting favorite.
Yeah.
But
Duke and Villanova were the betting favorites too. So does that make you nervous?
Yes and no. This is the time of year when like Kansas is going to like choke it away and get laughed at and all that kind of stuff. But it's, it's kind of a thing where this team has a bit of a different feel to it to me because they, last year they didn't have a pro. This year they have Josh Jackson, who's a certified pro. He's going to go in the top 3 picks. They have a point guard who is...
I don't know that I'd say top 3.
I mean, I think he's going to go top 3 because he's...
Fultz, Ball, Tatum.
Maybe. Tatum has come on later on in the year. So either way, Kansas actually has a pro player, which they didn't have last year. And I think if they would have, then they could have beaten Villanova.
I agree with that. So my final 4... Baylor, Arizona, Michigan, Kentucky. Of those 4, when we picked last week with the bracket not even being touched, Kentucky was the only one I had. So if you can't tell, my bracket had a rough week.
Yeah, I think I picked Kentucky as well. I picked them.
You picked North Carolina.
I might have. I don't remember. I picked North Carolina here today too, and I think that they're going to come out and show why they're the number 1 seed out of the ACC. They're the only team left in the ACC.
Yeah, that's sad. So when we come back next Monday, Sean Foley anticipates that our final 4 will be Baylor, Arizona, Kansas, and North Carolina. I think he's wrong. It's going to be Baylor, Arizona, Michigan, and Kentucky. I can't wait. This is going to be a fun weekend. You get a couple days off of no college basketball on.
Well, I might go watch the women's game right now. Well, okay. There was Baylor beat Texas Southern the other night, and it was all like an 84-point game. It wasn't close.
UConn's going to play a close game in the tournament.
No, they're not.
Do they have Maryland in their region?
I don't know, but
they beat Maryland by like 7 earlier this year.
They're beating Syracuse 86-51 at the end of the 3rd.
Yeah, I didn't say it was going to be that game.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just like pulling up the score right now. They are whipping people.
That team can't even be fun to root for. But
I think if you're a Connecticut fan, you
or a Connecticut grad.
Thank you, please giving me these trophies. This is great. But
for a casual basketball,
yeah, no,
fan,
I'm like I don't even want to watch the tournament because it's isn't appealing.
They might as well give whoever ends up making the other side of the bracket
their own special trophy.
Congratulations, hey. You got whoever is the 2 seed in that region. Should be really upset that they're the 2 seed. I don't know who it is. I haven't paid attention.
No.
But I think it might be Notre Dame.
I don't know.
But they should be really upset because you're going to get raffle stomped in the Elite 8.
They're going to beat a team by 20, and it's not going to be fun.
20? That's it?
I'm saying in the national title game, they're going to beat someone by 20, or possibly in the Elite 8.
Yeah, it'll be bad. But
they basically have a team of 7 pros.
Yeah, they had the top 3 picks in last year's draft, and they just reload. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. One of their players right now is 9 of 12 from 3-pointers with 29 points, and
That's pretty good. They've
only played 6 players. They're not even doing it with like a lot of players. This is amazing, guys.
Yeah, we're witnessing something crazy, even though most of us won't witness it because it's not really that exciting. But it is awesome to watch, and I don't know what their streak's at now, but it's up there.
I think 110. That's just a guess because they were at 103 earlier. And
yeah. So the UConn women, they keep rolling. This show is going to stop rolling here in a moment. We managed to pull about an hour and 20 minutes out of that. Not bad at all.
No, when you first told me we're gonna talk about Joe Mixon, I was like, it's pretty exciting. I don't know entirely all about the situation. Then about coaches, I was like, I'm like pretty bad with names. So when you're like rolling off these names, if you give me the school, cool. If you don't, I'm like, I don't know where he goes. But I think it's a good time. I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself until Thursday because
I don't know either. I got to work all week, so
do I. But it's still just like there's no.
And I was fortunate. I have to work Friday night till 8. And I was really concerned because I didn't know the schedule. That I was like, man, I'm going to miss UCLA, Kentucky, or I'm going to miss Kansas, Purdue, or whatever. I look at the schedule, and it's South Carolina, Baylor, and Butler, North Carolina. Like the two games I couldn't care less about are going to be the ones that are like a 6 and a 6:40 tip-off. So I kind of lucked out there.
Yeah, that's good.
But that'll pretty much do it for Trevor and Sean Sports Podcast, episode number 4. Thank you for listening. We'll be back here next Monday to look at how bad even these picks for our Final Four were and preview the Final Four and look ahead. So thank you for listening.